There is a moment in life, a sacred moment, when you no longer wait for the world to approve of your dreams. You no longer need the applause, the evidence, or the signs. You simply decide. You decide to act, to speak, to walk, to breathe, as if your biggest success is no longer in the future, just but standing at your door, knocking. And when you make that decision, not in fear or fantasy, but in knowing, something in the universe shifts. Something in the atmosphere rearranges itself to respond to you, as if the entire cosmos had been waiting for you to remember who you are. This is not about pretending. It's not about faking confidence. It's not a game of imagination. It is alignment. Sacred, bold, undeniable alignment. When you act as if your greatest success is already yours, you're not delusional. You're obedient to a higher knowing. You are walking in the vibration of truth before the facts catch up. You are not chasing success. You are becoming the version of you that success is chasing. And let me tell you something that most people will never understand until it's too late. Success doesn't arrive when you are finally ready. Success arrives when you begin to live as if it already belongs to you. The universe does not respond to your need. It responds to your certainty, your dominant state, your embodied expectation. So what is your dominant energy today? Are you waking up with dread, convincing yourself that your breakthrough is distant, unlikely, or reserved for someone more qualified than you? Or are you waking up with the fire of destiny in your bones, walking through your day with the quiet confidence that everything you touch is blessed? Every step you take is sacred, and every delay is divine preparation. There's a holy boldness that rises in those who understand this principle. They are not loud, they are not boastful, but they walk differently, they speak differently, they don't beg the world to notice them, they don't seek permission, they don't ask, when will it happen for me? They declare, it's happening now, and everything is catching up to me. That is the energy we are stepping into. That is the spirit this speech will ignite in you. You must act as if your biggest success is not only coming, it is already unfolding, not tomorrow, not next year, not someday, but now, right now, this breath, this heartbeat, this hour. You're not preparing to succeed. You're stepping into the role of someone who already has. Because here is the secret. The version of you that receives the dream is not separate from you. It is you, the truest version of you, buried beneath delay, doubt, and disappointment. Strip all that away. Breathe. Can you feel it? That version of you already exists. The wealth, the healing, the visibility, the peace, it already exists. And your job is not to beg for it. Your job is to align with it, to walk toward it, to carry yourself with the same energy and dignity and expectation as someone who already knows the ending, who already knows the victory is sealed, who already knows that every closed door, every betrayal, every lonely night was just part of the setup. You must walk like a person who's been told the good news in advance, and now they're simply showing up to receive what's already theirs. When you shift from, I hope it will happen, to, I know it's happening, you trigger something spiritual, something that rearranges time. You enter what some call the flow, others call grace, and the ancients called divine favor. And in that space, nothing is random, nothing is wasted. Even your current reality, as confusing or painful as it may seem, becomes part of the manifestation. Because now, you're no longer reacting to life, you're creating it. Success doesn't ask, are you perfect? It asks, are you available? Are you living in the state of your desire fulfilled? Are you ready to feel now how you thought you would feel then? Because that's the bridge. That's the secret door. That's the access point to the version of you that already succeeded. And if you're waiting for circumstances to change before you change, you've missed the truth. You change, then everything else follows. So today, we rise. We rise in energy. We rise in belief. We rise in posture. This isn't about hoping anymore. This is about knowing. This is about carrying the frequency of fulfillment in your spirit and letting the world adjust to your vibration. This is not just a speech. This is an awakening. You weren't born to beg life for blessings. You were born to command your atmosphere with faith, not arrogance, faith. And faith is not weak. Faith does not whisper timid requests into the void, hoping something will stick. No. Faith speaks boldly, clearly, and with unwavering assurance. Faith builds its house before the land is cleared. Faith sows the seed before the rain arrives. Faith prepares the room before the child is born. Faith walks as if it already holds the victory, because in truth it already does. You were never meant to look around and ask, "Can I?" You were meant to look within and declare, "I already have." That's what it means to act as if your biggest success is coming. It's not just about doing more or pushing harder. It's about stepping into the consciousness of someone who no longer doubts, someone who knows, someone who believes that the promise and the process are one and the same. And don't mistake this power for delusion. This is not about ignoring your present. This is about transcending it. Your current circumstances are not your final destination. They are the soil where your new reality is being cultivated. And when you stop resisting the process and start embodying the end, everything starts to bend in your favor, not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. There's a sacred discipline in acting as if, because the world will try to humble you. People will call it pride. They'll say you're unrealistic. They'll mock your vision because it challenges their comfort. But you must not shrink. You must not return to the smallness that made others feel safe. You must stand taller, speak clearer, move stronger, not because everything is perfect, but because everything is possible. Do you know what happens when you carry yourself like the person you were created to be? Life begins to mirror you. People begin to treat you differently. Opportunities begin to appear where once there were walls. It's not magic, it's magnetism. When you act as if, you vibrate at a frequency that calls forth the very reality you are aligned with. And that's where most people fail. They wait for the thing to arrive so they can feel worthy. But worthiness is not given to you by achievement. It is something you must claim in the dark. Before anyone sees it, before anyone validates it, you must tell yourself again and again, "I am the one, I am the proof, I am the vessel that will carry this dream to life." You must train your emotions to follow vision, not visibility. Don't wait for the results to feel joy. Feel joy now. Don't wait for the breakthrough to feel peace. Feel peace now. Don't wait for the success to feel secure. Breathe security now. Why? Because your outer world is an echo. It cannot lead, it can only follow. And the longer you wait for something external to give you internal permission, the longer you'll be trapped in a loop of delay. Break the loop. Stand up and decide that today is the day you stop begging for scraps when the feast already has your name on it. The table is set, the door is open, and the only question remaining is, will you walk in like you belong there? The truth is, most people sabotage their own future because they can't see past the evidence of the present. But visionaries, they see what isn't yet visible. They feel what hasn't yet taken form, and they move in a way that commands reality to align. Not someday, now. So I ask you this, if your biggest success truly was coming, if it was already signed, sealed, and being delivered, how would you show up today? Would you hesitate to speak your truth? Would you continue playing small to fit in? Would you keep hiding your gifts, dimming your light, second-guessing your instincts? Or would you rise? Would you sit taller in the room? Would you begin to dress, speak, move, and create like someone who knows they're on the verge of a divine appointment? Because the truth is your greatest moment is already on its way. And you don't need to chase it. You don't need to force it. You just need to become the version of you that already lives inside the result. Walk in that posture, speak with that clarity, move with that certainty. This is your moment of shift, your invitation to leave behind the mindset of waiting and step fully into the mindset of arrival. Act as if your biggest success is coming, because it is, and it's looking for the version of you who believes it already has. Why belief before evidence is the gateway. There is a sacred paradox that governs all true transformation. You must believe it before you see it. The world teaches the opposite, that proof is the precursor to trust, that results must appear before belief is earned, that visibility is a requirement for conviction. But if you follow that pattern, you will always remain a prisoner to the present. You will become reactive, not creative. You will surrender your power to external circumstances and call it realism, when in truth it is self-abandonment. Belief is the blueprint. It's the inner architecture of the world you are building. It is the signal you send out into the field of possibility. And when that belief becomes dominant, not as a passing wish, but as a settled state, the unseen begins to obey your inner image. The invisible responds to the instruction written in your energy. That is the law. If you wait for evidence before you believe, you are too late. Because what you are seeing now is simply a result of what you've already believed. You are living in the residue of past assumptions. Your current environment is not a prophecy. It is a mirror. It reflects your internal commitments, not the fullness of your potential. So when you choose to believe before the manifestation, you are doing something radical. You are overriding the patterns of delay. You are rewriting the signal. You are stepping into creative power. You are in essence saying, I am the cause. My belief is the seed. And I no longer require proof to justify what I already know in my spirit. Look around at the people who create extraordinary lives. The ones who rise from nothing, the ones who make the impossible look effortless. They were not born with different DNA. They simply lived from the outcome before the outcome arrived. They didn't ask, what if it fails? They asked, who do I need to become to carry this vision? They didn't wait for validation to believe. They walked as though the world had already said yes. And because of that internal decision, the external world had no choice but to reflect it. That is not arrogance, that is alignment. Belief before evidence is not foolishness. It is the truest form of faith, not religious faith, but spiritual faith. A deep vibrational knowing that everything seen was first born unseen. That reality itself is plastic, bendable, responsive, and your belief is the hand that molds it. So pause and reflect. What are you believing right now? Not what are you hoping for, not what are you working toward, but what do you believe, deep beneath your words, beneath your effort, beneath your affirmations. Because your reality is being shaped not by what you say you want, but by what you believe is inevitable. If in your heart you believe success is for others, if in your heart you believe you're always behind, if in your heart you believe you're not enough, then that belief will continue to govern your outcomes, no matter how hard you work or how many goals you set. But if you begin to carry the belief that your biggest success is already in motion, if you begin to live from the end, not toward it, if you begin to hold the frequency of completion, not confusion, then reality will begin to mirror that knowing in ways you cannot yet imagine. You are not a passive participant in your destiny. You are a co-creator, and your belief system is the internal code that instructs the world around you. You are not here to predict what will happen. You are here to declare what is already done, and then walk in the confidence that your words are being fulfilled. Even when you cannot yet see the evidence. The doorway to your greatest success is belief, not just belief in general, but belief that precedes facts, belief that holds steady when the data contradicts it, belief that plants seeds without doubting the soil, belief that stands in the darkness and says, light is here, and does not flinch when the room stays dim a little longer. This is the type of belief that transcends logic, not because it is irrational, but because it is higher than reason. It is divine knowing. It is spiritual instruction. It is what the ancient sages understood long before science caught up, that mind precedes matter, that consciousness creates conditions, that the invisible is the root and the visible is the fruit. So the real question is no longer, can it happen? The real question is, will I believe long enough for it to arrive? Because every dream, every goal, every desire you've whispered to yourself late at night is already alive in another realm, waiting for your belief to become stable enough to let it through. Your belief is the permission slip. It's the gatekeeper. It is the energetic green light that says, I am ready to hold the thing I once only imagined. But if your belief flickers with every obstacle, if you stop showing up when things feel delayed, if you speak doubt louder than faith, you're sending mixed instructions. You're building the bridge, then tearing it down in the same breath. That's why belief must become a lifestyle, not a moment. It must become the soil you live in, not something you visit when you feel inspired. You cannot build a palace of abundance on the foundation of fear. You cannot plant wealth in soil soaked in insecurity. You must choose to believe before it makes sense, before people approve, before it's comfortable. Because that's the doorway few are willing to walk through, the space where nothing around you confirms your inner knowing, and still you keep moving. And something remarkable happens in that space. The world begins to bend, subtle shifts, sudden ideas, random opportunities, people showing up at the right time, answers where you once saw silence. Everything begins to organize itself not around what you have, but around who you're becoming. This is not magic, this is law. When your internal world becomes louder than your external world, you become a magnet for miracles. When your identity is rooted in completion, not lack, the universe delivers according to your signal. It's not watching your actions alone, it's listening to your certainty. And certainty doesn't shout, it doesn't panic, it simply is. Imagine a person walking through a storm without flinching. Not because the rain isn't real, but because they know the sun is coming. That's belief before evidence. That's what faith looks like in practice. It's not absence of difficulty. It's the refusal to be defined by it. And when you act as if your biggest success is coming, when you embody that reality, even in the smallest details, the way you speak, the way you walk, the way you rest, the way you treat others, you send out a signal that you are no longer chasing, you are claiming. There's a posture to belief, a presence. It doesn't always need words. Sometimes it's just the way you carry yourself, the calmness in your energy, the softness in your voice, the resilience in your silence. People feel it, even if they can't name it. They'll say you're different. They'll wonder why you're not anxious, why you're not competing, why you're not reacting. But deep down, you'll know. It's because your success is already real to you. You've stopped auditioning for a future that's already yours. You see, belief is the most dangerous force in the world. Dangerous to fear, dangerous to delay, dangerous to doubt. Because once you believe deeply, consistently, and without apology, nothing outside of you can block what's meant for you. No rejection, no betrayal, no delay, no detour. You become unshakable, unstoppable, and you begin to realize that success is not a destination, it's a vibration, and you are the one who decides to tune in. So right now, in this moment, ask yourself, what would it feel like to live today as if everything was working for you? How would you sit if you already knew the deal was done? How would you speak if you already knew the money, the healing, the breakthrough, the opportunity was finalized in heaven and just waiting to arrive in time? How would you walk into that room? How would you show up for yourself? Because when belief becomes your baseline, not just a peak during good days, but a floor beneath your feet, you enter a flow where success doesn't feel forced. It feels natural. Because you've become the person who belongs in that outcome. You've aligned your energy, your identity, and your vision with what is already yours. And that's the gateway. Not effort alone, not planning alone, but belief before evidence. This is how your future is shaped, not by waiting, but by becoming, not by watching the clock, but by adjusting your consciousness, not by hoping one day things will shift, but by deciding that they already have, and living as if every step is sacred, because it is. You are not waiting for your life to begin. You are stepping into the chapter where it already has. Believe that, and the world will believe with you. You don't get what you want, you get what you are. Most people spend their entire lives chasing what they want, unaware that they are not truly attracting what they desire, but what they are aligned with. The law is simple and absolute. You don't get what you want, you get what you are. Your life is a mirror, not of your wishes, but of your being. Desire in and of itself is not enough. Wanting to be wealthy while living in lack will not shift your reality. Wishing for love while vibrating in fear will not attract it. Hoping for peace while dwelling in chaos will never produce rest, because life responds not to your longing, but to your identity. And identity is not formed by words, it's formed by energy, by embodiment, by the version of you that shows up daily, not just when you're inspired, but especially when you're not. So the real transformation begins not when you set a goal, but when you become the version of you who already lives in the outcome. Let that settle in for a moment. You already know what you want, but who are you when no one is watching? Who are you in your private moments, in your conversations with yourself, in your expectations when you lie in bed at night and replay the day? That internal self, the silent narrator of your life, is what the world is responding to. It's not about acting positive, it's about becoming positive. Not about repeating affirmations mindlessly, but about letting those affirmations rewrite the emotional tone of your being. Because at your core, you are not attracting from thought alone, you are attracting from state, from the sum total of your assumptions, your feelings, your beliefs, and your habits. So if you feel stuck, ask yourself, what version of me is running this moment? The one who still feels undeserving? The one who still carries the betrayal? The one who still needs outside approval to feel powerful? Because you may want growth, but if you are still showing up as the version of you who fears it, your life will match the fear, not the desire. And here's the key. Becoming isn't a performance. It's a return, a remembering. It's peeling away the layers of conditioning, trauma, and lies that made you believe you weren't already enough. It's rediscovering your original design, the one that was always aligned with success, with wholeness, with abundance. You don't have to force anything. You simply have to stop pretending that your current identity is your final one. Every day life is asking you, will you be the version of you that matches your dream or the version that matches your history? And every choice you make, every thought you entertain, every action you take is a vote for who you are becoming. It's not about waiting for a major moment of change. It's about shifting now, in the smallest decisions, in the subtle responses, in the energy you bring to a room. Because the compound effect of alignment is what opens the floodgates of transformation. The version of you that already has the success you crave, how do they wake up in the morning? How do they handle criticism? How do they move through fear? What do they no longer tolerate? What do they no longer entertain? Success is not an event that rescues you from who you are. Success is an extension of who you've become. So if you want to change your world, stop adjusting the outside. Start adjusting the self. Upgrade the software within. Rewire the assumptions that say, I can't, I'm not ready, it's not for me. Because those silent agreements are binding your future to a past that's already expired. You must shift your state, not just your behavior, not just your goals, but your state. When you change your state, your reality recalibrates. You no longer chase outcomes, you carry them, you radiate them, you walk into rooms differently, and those rooms begin to echo your frequency back to you in the form of open doors, divine timing, and unexpected favor. This is the inner work that few want to do. It's easier to chase strategies than to change your self-concept. But the truth is, without the identity shift, all external gains are temporary. You might win for a moment, but if your internal blueprint still screams unworthy, you'll find a way to sabotage, delay, or diminish your blessings. Because you don't get what you want, you get what you are. The most dangerous illusion in personal growth is the idea that you can upgrade your life without upgrading your identity. That somehow, by changing your circumstances, your job, your relationship, your bank account, you will finally feel different. But if your identity remains tied to the same limiting beliefs, to the same scarcity programs, to the same emotional wounds you've carried for years, you will sabotage any breakthrough you manage to experience. You'll find yourself back where you started, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, because you changed the outer reality but never restructured the internal foundation it was built upon. You must understand that your current reality is not a reflection of your goals. It's a reflection of your self-concept. The world around you isn't telling you what's possible. It's revealing what you believe you are worthy of. And worthiness is not a label someone hands you. It's an energetic posture you must embody. If you walk through life constantly seeking validation, approval, or permission to feel valuable, then even the greatest opportunities will feel unreachable. They may appear briefly, but you won't recognize them as yours. You'll question whether you deserve them. You'll wonder if you can sustain them. And the moment you do, you begin the slow process of repelling what you prayed for. Identity is everything. It determines the quality of your decisions, the boundaries you set, the relationships you attract, and the risks you're willing to take. When you shift who you are at the core, your entire life shifts with it. Not because something magical happened outside of you, but because something permanent changed within you. The future bends for those who refuse to carry yesterday's self into tomorrow. If you want to attract abundance, become abundant in spirit. If you want deep love, become someone who embodies deep self-respect. If you want freedom, release the mental prison you've built through years of fear and self-doubt. And if you want success, become the version of you who believes beyond logic that success is your natural state, not an accident, not a miracle, but a reflection of your alignment. Too many people build elaborate plans with identities that can't sustain them. They journal about the life they want, but still think like someone who has failed. They vision board luxury, but still walk like someone who's been rejected. They talk about impact, but still carry the emotional DNA of invisibility. And when the outcomes don't come, they blame God, they blame the world, they blame timing. But they never turn inward long enough to ask, who have I been becoming in the quiet moments when no one is watching? This isn't about being perfect, it's about being intentional. You don't need to have all the answers, but you must carry a consistent vibration. You must show up each day with the commitment to become a living, breathing mirror of the reality you want to create. The old version of you may have been filled with doubt, but this version walks differently. Not because the path is easier, but because the inner atmosphere is cleaner, clearer, and more powerful. When you act as if your biggest success is coming, you begin to strip away everything that doesn't match it. You let go of relationships that drain you. You no longer waste time arguing for your limitations. You stop performing humility for people who are secretly threatened by your light. You become focused, aligned, whole, not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you've decided that you are already enough to live the life you see in your spirit. And the world will begin to echo that truth back to you. You'll notice people treating you differently, not because they've changed, but because your energy no longer tolerates disrespect. You'll find doors opening, not because you suddenly got lucky, but because your vibration is now the key that unlocks rooms you once felt excluded from. You'll feel peace even in uncertainty, because you're no longer depending on certainty to feel worthy. It all begins with identity. That is the foundation. That is the container that holds your future. If you expand your identity, you expand your capacity, you expand your reach, you expand your peace, and you allow your greatest success to not just visit you for a moment, but to stay. You don't need to hustle harder. You need to align deeper. You don't need to wait for evidence. You need to remember who you are. You don't need to chase anything. You need to become the version of yourself who is already magnetic to the outcome. When you shift your being, the wanting dissolves because you realize you're no longer waiting for your life to begin. You're just aligning with what has always belonged to you. The process of transformation is not about adding more. It's about removing what never belonged. You were always enough. You were always chosen. You were always wired for greatness. The moment you become that truth in the way you think, the way you walk, the way you rest, the way you respond, the world mirrors that version of you without hesitation. You don't get what you want. You get what you are. So become it now. The silent power of embodied conviction. There is a kind of power that never raises its voice. A power that doesn't demand attention or chase validation, but shifts rooms simply by entering them. This is not the loud, performative confidence that the world often celebrates. This is something deeper, something quieter, something unshakable. It is the embodied conviction of someone who knows, not in theory but in spirit, that their greatest success is already set in motion. It is the posture of a soul that no longer begs life to respond because it already understands that life is responding, not to their noise, but to their knowing. Conviction is not wishful thinking dressed in optimism. It's not the smile you wear on good days or the pep talk you give yourself before a challenge. Conviction is a frequency, stable, centered, unmoved by delay, undisturbed by doubt. It's the spiritual gravity that grounds your vision in the present moment before the evidence has even appeared. When you embody conviction, you're no longer looking outside yourself for proof. You become the proof. You walk with the rhythm of fulfillment in your bones. You show up to life like someone who already received the call, already got the confirmation, already signed the invisible contract with destiny. This kind of energy doesn't compete, doesn't compare, and doesn't panic. It knows, it breathes, it watches without reacting, and most of all, it speaks through action. Embodied conviction is the language of those who no longer perform belief. They carry it in their silence. You can see it in their eyes. You can feel it in their presence. You can sense it in the way they say less but mean more. So how do you develop such power? It begins when you stop relying on outer motivation to access inner truth, when you no longer need to be reminded that your time is coming, because your being is the reminder. Conviction is built in the sacred space between the desire and the outcome, in the days when nothing changes, yet you remain unchanged. It is forged in the fire of resistance, not by escaping it, but by standing firm inside it. Because the person who cannot be moved by the winds of uncertainty will always attract what others only dream of. The mistake most people make is trying to force reality to confirm their belief instead of becoming so deeply rooted in belief that confirmation becomes irrelevant. They check their bank account every hour. They replay conversations, second-guessing their every word. They keep searching for signs instead of becoming one. But conviction does not chase proof. It lives as if the proof is already within. And ironically, it's that unwavering stillness that accelerates manifestation. The universe rushes to meet those who no longer entertain doubt. When you live in embodied conviction, you don't announce your goals to get attention. You don't need to be praised to stay committed. You don't seek permission to go after your vision. Instead, you move in silence, build in stillness, and emerge in power. You become a quiet storm, steady, focused, unstoppable. And the world, confused by your peace in the middle of what looks like delay, begins to take notice, not because you shouted, but because you showed up differently. There is a majesty to conviction. It separates the wanderers from the warriors. It's what allows some to keep walking through the valley without falling apart, not because they don't feel the weight, but because they've already seen the mountaintop in their spirit. And once you've seen it within, no amount of resistance without can convince you otherwise. The truth is, most people aren't lacking talent, intelligence, or opportunity. They're lacking conviction. They've memorized the affirmations, made the plans, listened to the speeches, but deep inside, there's still a hesitation, a quiet doubt, a lingering, what if it doesn't work? That one crack in their energy leaks everything. It weakens their signal. It causes them to shrink back when they were meant to rise. But when conviction becomes your baseline, your foundation, not something you try to access occasionally, but something you live and breathe, then your world must respond. People feel your shift. Circumstances begin to bend. Timing aligns. And not because you forced anything, but because you matched it. You must understand, conviction is not built overnight. It is not something you wake up with after reading one book or hearing one inspiring talk. It is cultivated. It is earned through your willingness to show up day after day as if the promise is already fulfilled, even when your senses try to convince you otherwise. Conviction is formed in the spiritual gym, where you lift the weight of uncertainty and train your soul to believe despite contradiction. It is in the repetition of inner agreement, not with your fear, but with your future. Every time you choose to act in alignment with the version of you that already succeeded, you are strengthening your conviction, thickening the roots of your belief, and becoming immovable. And here's the beauty of it. Once your conviction is embodied, you stop trying to control the timing. You stop demanding instant results as proof. You stop begging for clarity before you move. Why? Because you trust yourself. You trust the process. You trust the source that placed the vision in you in the first place. Conviction replaces the need for external validation with internal assurance. It is the quiet fire that warms you even in cold seasons, the silent drumbeat that keeps your rhythm steady when life tries to throw you off course. When you are truly convicted, there's no room left for desperation. You don't chase, you attract, you don't plead, you prepare, you don't wait for applause. You work in the shadows knowing your light will eventually expose what's been growing in secret. Embodied conviction teaches you to carry your success in your soul before you carry it in your hands. And the moment you do, the world must catch up. Not because you forced it, but because you became it. Look around at the people you admire, those who seem to radiate effortless power. You'll find a common thread. They believe what they carry is real, even if no one sees it yet. Their movements are intentional. Their speech is clean, uncluttered by excuses. Their presence speaks louder than their words. And that didn't happen by accident. It happened because they made a decision to stop waiting for their reflection in the world to validate the image in their spirit. They decided that being the version of themselves who already has the thing they seek is not optional. It's required. So ask yourself, have you been standing in that kind of knowing? Or have you been waiting for signs, for feedback, for permission to finally believe? Have you been dragging yourself through doubt, hoping something outside of you will fix the tension inside? Or are you ready now to release the performance and fully inhabit the reality you say you want? Because the truth is, nothing will move until you do. And I don't mean moving physically, I mean moving internally, shifting your identity into alignment with what you say you expect. Conviction isn't about hype. It's not about pretending to feel powerful when you don't. It's about anchoring yourself so deeply in truth that even on hard days, your energy remains clean. It's about standing so firmly in your vision that you don't crumble every time something doesn't go as planned. It's about being consistent, not just in discipline, but in vibration. You can't fake conviction. People will feel the gaps. The universe will feel the hesitation. But when your conviction is real, it becomes your compass. It decides how you walk into a meeting, how you carry yourself when no one is clapping, how you respond to delay, how you manage failure, how you treat people even when you feel overlooked. Conviction is not loud, it's composed, it's grounded, it's magnetic. And once you learn to embody it, you'll realize you never needed to convince anyone again. Your energy will do the talking, your silence will carry authority, your presence will start to draw things in without you having to explain yourself, because people and life respond to certainty, not arrogance, not ego, but certainty. This is the silent power that changes everything, not because you demanded the world to see you differently, but because you finally saw yourself differently. And once that happens, everything around you, people, opportunities, timing, begins to organize itself around the new signal you're sending. You no longer live by reaction, you live by design, by alignment, by authority. You're not here to prove your worth, you're here to embody it, to carry yourself like the person who already has the result, to act as if your biggest success is not only coming, but that it is already with you in spirit and just waiting for time to catch up. That is embodied conviction. That is the silent, unstoppable power that rewrites your life. The inner world must shift first. Before anything moves on the outside, it must shift within. This is not just philosophy. It is spiritual law. It is the reason why people can work tirelessly for years, changing jobs, changing relationships, changing environments, and yet still feel stuck, still repeat the same patterns, still carry the same emptiness wherever they go, because they never address the core truth. You can't change your life until you change the world you carry inside. The outer world is a mirror, not a master. And if you keep polishing the reflection while ignoring the source, you'll stay trapped in a loop that feels like motion but leads nowhere. This is the illusion of effort without alignment. It is the exhausting cycle of fixing symptoms while avoiding the root. You can grind all day, follow strategies, read books, hire coaches, and still find yourself back at square one if the core of who you are remains the same. You must shift the atmosphere within you before anything around you can truly evolve. This is the foundational truth most people never want to hear because it requires responsibility. It asks you to stop blaming the world and start examining the patterns you've agreed to live under. It calls you to take inventory of the thoughts you've normalized, the emotional states you rehearse, the assumptions you carry without question. Your inner world is the factory where your future is manufactured. Your thoughts are blueprints. Your feelings are fuel. Your beliefs are the engineers. And your dominant identity, the self-image you return to when no one's watching, is the architect. If you allow fear to run the blueprint, if you allow anxiety to supply the energy, if you allow unworthiness to sit at the head of the table, then what you create externally will always fall short of what you truly desire. The outer structure cannot sustain what the inner frame is not prepared to hold. The reason many people manifest temporary success only to lose it is because their external breakthrough outpaced their internal growth. They were gifted something their consciousness couldn't yet handle. They received abundance, but still thought poor. They received love, but still feared abandonment. They received visibility, but still believed they were unworthy of being seen. And so, what came in grace left in chaos, not because they didn't want it, but because they hadn't yet become the person who could keep it. So you must go inward, not once, but daily. Not casually, but deliberately. You must become a curator of your internal landscape. Tend to it like a sacred garden. Protect it from weeds of fear. Water it with truth. Illuminate it with awareness. And most of all, choose, again and again, to create a home inside yourself that matches the life you want to live outside. If you desire peace, you must become a peaceful thinker. If you want wealth, you must develop a rich inner dialogue. If you want powerful outcomes, you must become the person who thinks, feels, and walks in alignment with power. Not one day, not someday, but now. Because your current emotional home is the signal you're sending to the universe. And the universe is always saying yes, not to your words, but to your vibration. This is not easy work. It is quiet, invisible, often uncomfortable. It's not glamorous to sit with your beliefs and challenge them. It's not thrilling to deconstruct the lies you've repeated to yourself for years. But it is necessary, because when the inner world changes, the outer world has no choice. What you believe about yourself becomes the law of your life. What you assume to be true starts to shape every room you walk into, every conversation you have, every opportunity that presents itself. And here's the paradox. The moment you shift inward, you begin to need less from the outside. You stop trying to force life to validate you. You no longer need applause to feel worthy, because your identity is no longer dependent on anything external. You carry your knowing inside. You become stable. And from that stability, you attract people, experiences, and outcomes that reflect your inner wholeness, not your wounds. One of the most liberating truths you will ever embrace is this: your external life is not delayed. Your internal alignment is simply catching up. Every time you feel stuck, it's not because the world has stopped working for you. It's because your inner environment is asking for an upgrade. And not the kind that looks impressive on paper, but the kind that transforms you at the core. It's asking you to release the thoughts that no longer serve you, to question the assumptions you've carried for far too long, to stop identifying with pain and start identifying with power. Until you make that shift, you will find yourself circling the same mountain, calling it a journey when it's really a loop. And this is where most people surrender. Not because they're weak, but because they never realize that the most important battles are invisible. You can't show someone your mindset the way you show them a diploma or a business card. You can't take a picture of a belief and post it online for validation. The inner work is lonely, quiet, and rarely celebrated. But it is the root of every lasting success you will ever experience. When your inner world is clean, aligned, and anchored in truth, you stop looking for shortcuts. You stop rushing the process. You realize that everything you are chasing is already within reach, because it's already within you. Shifting your inner world is not about constant self-criticism. It's not about trying to fix yourself from a place of shame. It's about remembering who you were before the world taught you to settle, to shrink, to delay your becoming. It's about returning to the original design. The version of you that is whole, fearless, full of light. That version has never been far away. It's been buried beneath conditioning, beneath trauma, beneath comparison and fear. The shift is not about adding more. It's about removing what was never yours to carry. When you do that, you don't have to fake peace. You become peace. You don't have to force abundance. You radiate it. You'll know the shift has begun when your reactions change. When what once triggered you now teaches you. When what once scared you now stretches you. When the need to be understood by others fades because you finally understand yourself. When you no longer argue for your limitations or over-explain your vision to people who lack the capacity to hold it. These are the signs that your inner world is transforming. These are the markers that your vibration is elevating. And as it does, your outer world must obey. Not by coincidence, but by divine law. The world rearranges itself around the frequency you emit consistently. Not the frequency you visit when you're inspired, but the one you live in when no one is watching. This is why discipline of the mind is everything. Not just positive thinking, but conscious thinking. Choosing the thoughts that support your vision, interrupting the patterns that sabotage your future, creating new mental grooves that say, I am ready, I am worthy, I am aligned. Because thought is not just thought, it is architecture. You are building every moment with the materials you choose to repeat, and the structure of your life will only be as strong as the beliefs it rests on. So if you want to see different results, don't just change your schedule, change your inner narrative. Replace self-doubt with divine certainty. Replace fear with faith in your preparation. Replace the story of delay with the truth of divine timing. Start expecting alignment instead of worrying about how it will happen. Trust that if you are doing the internal work, the healing, the releasing, the aligning, then everything else is already moving into place. The shift within will not always feel dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle, a softening in how you speak to yourself, a calm that follows disappointment, a quiet confidence that shows up before the outcome does. But do not underestimate the power of these changes. They are not small, they are the roots of a new reality being planted. And once those roots grow deep enough, they will bear fruit, not just in one area of your life, but in all of them. When your inner world becomes the source of your peace, your power, and your purpose, you become unshakable. And that is when the outer world can no longer control you. It must respond to you, because you've become a match for your highest self, not through effort alone, but through embodiment, through truth, through the invisible shift that changes everything. Stop waiting for proof, live like it's done. The habit of waiting for proof is the silent thief of destiny. It is the mindset that traps people in cycles of hesitation, doubt, and delay. They wait for the bank account to grow before they feel secure. They wait for the relationship to appear before they feel loved. They wait for applause before they feel worthy. But the truth is, nothing changes until you stop waiting and start living like it's already done. Because if you need to see it before you believe it, you will always remain a step behind your miracle. The doorway to transformation does not swing open when the world shows you evidence. It opens when you become the evidence. Living like it's done is not about pretending or lying to yourself. It's about aligning with the version of you who already has what you are calling in. It's about waking up each morning and asking, how would I think, speak, walk, breathe, and create if it were already finished? And then doing exactly that, not out of fantasy, but out of faith. Because faith is not passive. Faith is not soft. Faith is bold. It acts without needing external reassurance. It moves with a knowing that what is unseen is just as real as what is visible, sometimes more real. When you live like it's done, you begin to interact with life from a place of completion, not craving, from fulfillment, not frustration. And that shift changes everything. The reason many people don't manifest what they desire is because their behavior betrays their belief. They speak affirmations of abundance, yet their energy is still soaked in fear. They say they are ready for love, yet they walk through life guarded and bitter. They claim to trust divine timing, yet panic when delays come. The universe doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to the energy you consistently embody. And if that energy is rooted in doubt, no amount of verbal affirmation can override it. This is why living like it's done is so powerful. It rewires your nervous system, it retrains your emotions, it reforms your identity. And once you live as the person who already holds the outcome, the world has no choice but to reflect that truth. But here's what most miss. Living like it's done is not about grand gestures. It's in the subtleties. It's in the way you sit when you're in a waiting room, the way you breathe when the email hasn't arrived, the way you hold eye contact during a conversation, the way you treat your craft even when it hasn't paid off yet. It's in the way you speak to yourself when no one else is around. Every moment becomes an opportunity to confirm what you believe, not once, but continuously, not just when you feel strong, but especially when you feel uncertain. Because conviction that only lasts when things are going well is not conviction, it's convenience. You must decide, will I live based on what I see, or will I live based on what I know? The first will always make you reactive. The second will make you powerful. People who wait for proof become victims of time. They sit and watch and wonder and worry. But those who live like it's done, they move differently. They invest before the return. They prepare before the confirmation. They honor their vision as if the world already sees it, even if no one does yet. And it is because of this posture that life begins to respond, not because they begged, but because they believed, and then behaved accordingly. The moment you shift into this kind of living, your actions gain weight. Your presence begins to carry a different frequency. People notice your confidence not because you're trying to impress, but because you're not seeking anything from them. You're not trying to convince anyone. You've already convinced yourself, and when your own belief becomes louder than the world's silence, you become magnetic. One of the most powerful transitions you will ever make in your life is the move from hoping it happens to living like it's already done. This is not arrogance. This is not fantasy. This is spiritual maturity. It means you've stopped negotiating with fear and started aligning with truth. It means you finally recognize that your energy is the invitation, and the way you show up daily is either affirming your breakthrough or postponing it. Every time you speak from a place of doubt, you are rehearsing lack. But every time you embody confidence, even when nothing looks different yet, you are casting votes for the reality you want to live in. Eventually, those votes accumulate, and reality bends. But here is the test. Can you still live like it's done when everything around you screams otherwise? Can you walk like a winner when life hands you losses? Can you keep speaking vision when others speak only what they see? This is where most give up. They assume the delay is a denial. They confuse silence for rejection. They think waiting without evidence is foolish. But if you truly understand the laws of creation, you know that everything begins invisibly. The roots grow before the branches. The formation happens underground, in the dark, in the quiet. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it isn't real. In fact, the most real things are often the ones hidden from sight, like faith, like peace, like identity. You were never meant to build your life only around what's visible. If you do, you become a slave to circumstance. You become addicted to reassurance. You start measuring your value by metrics. You start chasing moments instead of becoming momentum. But when you live like it's done, you build from the inside out. Your life becomes a reflection of your soul's stability. You walk into meetings differently. You handle delays with wisdom. You speak less but with more impact. Because now your life is no longer defined by temporary conditions. It's anchored in eternal conviction. And here's what happens when you maintain this posture long enough. The world begins to shift. People begin to see you through the lens you hold for yourself. Opportunities begin to organize themselves around your energy. Random coincidences start aligning perfectly, and when they do, it won't surprise you because you weren't waiting in disbelief. You were already living in alignment. The outside simply caught up with the inner decision you made long ago. But let me warn you, the transition into this way of living will be tested. There will be moments when the silence feels loud, when your actions feel pointless, when you wonder if all of this alignment talk is just wishful thinking. And in those moments, your job is not to panic. Your job is to persist. Your job is to remember that proof is not a prerequisite for power, that the people who change the world are not the ones who waited for guarantees. They are the ones who showed up consistently long before there was applause, long before the crowd gathered, long before the world recognized what they were building. You must become so saturated with the energy of completion that nothing shakes you, that you don't need signs to keep going, that you don't need results to feel blessed, that you don't need an audience to keep delivering excellence. Because when your spirit is anchored in the truth that it is already done, your life becomes inevitable, not rushed, not forced, inevitable. This is what separates those who touch greatness from those who chase it forever. Greatness is not something you stumble into. It is something you become through repeated alignment with your highest self, through daily choices to live not by what you see, but by what you know, through the discipline of behaving like the outcome is guaranteed, not because you're delusional, but because you've done the inner work to make it real. So today ask yourself, are you living like it's done, or are you still waiting for life to prove it to you? Are you acting from vision or reacting to conditions? Are you radiating certainty or rehearsing confusion? Because in the end, what you embody most consistently will be what you experience, not because the world gave it to you, but because you gave it to yourself first. Live like it's done, speak like it's done, move like it's done, and watch how quickly life responds. You are already becoming what you seek. You have come far, not just in listening to these words, but in remembering something your soul has always known, that your life does not begin when the breakthrough comes. It begins when you decide to become the person who already holds it. And perhaps the greatest realization of all is this: your biggest success is not on the way, it's already here. It has been waiting patiently for you to meet it at the level of faith, identity, and energy it requires. There is no more room to wait, no more excuses to entertain, no more time to postpone the version of yourself that's ready to lead, to serve, to rise. You cannot continue outsourcing your future to circumstances or timelines. You cannot keep telling yourself that you'll feel confident once the world confirms you. Confidence is not a gift you receive from others. It is a decision you make in silence. It is a fire you light from within, not because you've earned it, but because you've remembered it was always there. The people who build extraordinary lives are not waiting for signs. They are not waiting for applause. They are not waiting for clarity. They decide, they declare, and then they move, not recklessly, but relentlessly. They build the house while the storm is still raging, because they know that by the time the sun rises, their foundation will already be strong. They don't hope the world changes for them. They change themselves, and the world adapts. This is your moment to claim that kind of power, to step out of the waiting room of your own destiny and walk through the door you've been standing in front of for years. Every doubt, every delay, every disappointment, it all led you here, not to punish you, not to slow you down, but to sharpen you, to strip away the parts of you that were never meant to carry the weight of your success. You were not denied, you were developed. And now it's time to live like the door is open, because it is. Walk like the path is already clear, because it is. Speak like the victory is already secured, because it is. You've spent enough time dimming your light to make others comfortable, enough time shrinking your energy because you were afraid to look arrogant, enough time waiting for permission to be who you already are. The truth is, you never needed permission. You needed alignment. You needed a moment like this to remember that your life is not waiting to happen. It's been calling to you all along. And now you finally have the courage to answer. You will still have moments of fear. You will still feel resistance. But fear is not a stop sign. It is a signal. It means you are getting closer to the edge of your old identity. It means you are brushing up against the limits of who you used to be. And when that happens, you must not turn back. You must lean in. You must keep walking. Because every time you act in alignment with the life you say you want, you dissolve the identity that's been holding you back. And with every small act of courage, you become more of the person who already lives inside the vision. There's no secret anymore, no missing key. You've heard the truth. You felt it resonate in your bones. You don't need another plan. You don't need another delay. You need to start living like it's done. Even if your bank account hasn't changed, even if the call hasn't come, even if no one claps, especially then, because that's the test. Can you carry the vibration before the manifestation? Can you trust what your soul knows, even when your senses don't agree? Because if you can, everything will change, and not gradually, but radically. Time will collapse, doors will swing open, resources will appear, people will find you, not because you forced it, but because you finally became a match for what was always meant for you. The truth is, you've never been waiting for success. Success has been waiting for you to believe deeper, to walk taller, to think higher, waiting for you to rise into the fullness of who you already are. And now that you have, there's nothing left to chase, only space to receive. From this moment forward, carry yourself like someone who already has the thing they used to pray for. Let your habits reflect your wholeness. Let your language reflect your certainty. Let your presence carry the quiet authority of someone who knows the end of the story and walks confidently through the middle. Don't just visualize success. Don't just write it in journals. Live it in your energy. Live it in your being. Speak it into rooms that haven't heard it before. Bring it into spaces where it doesn't yet exist. You are not just a dreamer. You are a vessel for the dream to become real. And it starts the moment you stop trying to get there and realize you already are. So breathe it in. Stand in it fully. No more waiting. No more wishing. No more apologizing for the fire in your spirit. You are here. You are ready. You are aligned. And your biggest success? It's not coming. It's here. Whatever you imagine persistently must become your reality. For the world you see is not a world of facts, it is a world of shadows, molded and shaped by the unseen movements of your inner being. Imagination is not a fleeting daydream or idle fantasy. It is the very creative power that gives form to all that you call life. To imagine is to create. To persist in that imagination is to command the unseen forces to gather and crystallize into what you experience as your world. Every condition you now endure, every joy you now celebrate, every disappointment you have met along the way, each of these was first a thought, a belief, an image quietly entertained in the solitude of your mind, and whether you knew it or not, your imagination gave them life. The secret that changes everything is this: what you feel and imagine as real will eventually harden into fact. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are conscious of being. Consider for a moment how often you return to certain images in your mind. When you wake, when you walk, when you're alone with your thoughts, what are the scenes you replay? Are they filled with fear, doubt, and lack? Or do they radiate confidence, abundance, and fulfillment? That which you imagine consistently, whether you label it as hope or fear, becomes a silent decree to life itself. You are always imagining. The question is, are you doing it deliberately? The greatest mistake is to believe that imagination is powerless, that it is mere escapism. But it is the only true power. All that you see in this world once lived first in someone's imagination. The house you live in, the clothes you wear, the voice you hear in music. Even the problems you face began as thoughts nurtured until they became part of your world. And if such power exists within you, does it not follow that your persistent inner vision is the blueprint of your tomorrow? To imagine persistently is not to force with willpower, but to rest in a state that feels real. It is to assume the end, to dwell in the experience as though it were already here. You do not wait for evidence. You create it. You do not chase the thing. You become one with the feeling of already having it. Your inner world must take the lead, and the outer will follow in obedience. This is not a theory to be debated. It is a truth to be proven by personal experience. And once you see its power, you will never again doubt your ability to shape your fate. Many fail to manifest their desires not because they lack effort, but because they waver. They imagine the goal, then the obstacle. They affirm success, then surrender to fear. But the one who persists, who returns daily, hourly if need be, to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, that one cannot fail. Persistence does not mean repetition without belief. It means loyalty to your vision in the face of delay, contradiction, and silence. You must make your imagination more real to you than the current facts. Speak from it, walk in it, feel it deeply, let it become your home. And even if nothing changes at once, do not retreat. The seed you plant in the imagination must gestate. And while it may be hidden, it is never inactive. Life rearranges itself silently in service of your dominant state of consciousness. What you are conscious of being will always find expression. You are not the victim of circumstance. You are the author of circumstance. When the vision becomes more compelling than the evidence of your senses, when the unseen is felt more deeply than the visible, then you have begun to live as the operant power. Imagination, fused with emotion and held persistently, becomes a command to the universe, no matter how impossible it may seem. If you do not let go of the image, it will take root and bloom. It is not enough to imagine once or twice. You must make it a dwelling place. Return to it when you are tired. Return to it when you are discouraged. Return to it when nothing seems to work. For imagination is the womb of reality, and all things must be born twice, first in the mind, then in the world. You do not need to ask how it will happen. That is not your task. Your task is to imagine, feel, and persist. You are the dreamer dreaming the world into existence. That which you consistently entertain in the silence of your soul becomes the loudest declaration of your life. Let your inner conversations be full of the things you long for. Let your thoughts echo the reality you seek, not the one you fear. What you water with your attention grows. And so, when you see no sign, persist. When the world laughs, persist. When your old thoughts try to pull you back, persist. There is no force on earth more powerful than a soul who holds steadfastly to the unseen image of their desire. Reality bends not for the faint-hearted, but for the one who dares to claim the invisible as already theirs. Imagination is not a luxury reserved for artists or dreamers. It is the core faculty by which every individual creates their world, knowingly or unknowingly. The power to imagine is the power to shape the very structure of your existence. All that you see in your world, your relationships, your finances, your health, your career, did not emerge randomly. These things are reflections of the ideas and mental images you have persistently entertained within the hidden theater of your mind. The truth, which so many overlook in favor of facts and figures, is that imagination precedes creation. It is not something secondary to action. It is the cause of action. Every action you've taken began with a thought. Every habit you formed began as a single idea impressed repeatedly upon your mind until it became natural. And every environment you dwell in was once imagined by you or someone else. This world is not fixed. It is fluid and moldable. And imagination is the hand that molds it. When you sit quietly and picture yourself in a life you desire, happy, successful, at peace, you are not escaping reality. You are engaging with the root of reality. You are entering into the first stage of creation. You are planting a seed. And like any seed, it must be watered and nurtured before it can bloom. But what most people do is abandon the garden before the harvest. They imagine once or twice, then look around and say, nothing has changed. But reality is not changed by mere glimpses of desire, it is changed by a consistent inner state. You must dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You must return to the scene of your desire as though it were your home, not as a visitor, but as a resident. Imagination is not weak, it is not pretend, it is not less real than what your senses tell you. In fact, it is more real, for what you sense with your physical eyes is only the shadow of a deeper reality formed within. Think back to your own life. Think of something that once did not exist in your world but now does. A relationship, a job, a moment of success, even a failure. If you are honest, you will remember the thoughts and emotions that led up to it. You will recall the nights you spent thinking of it, the daydreams you had, the fears you entertained. Those thoughts were not idle. They were creative. And they moved silently below the surface until the world had no choice but to obey. This is why you must guard your imagination with seriousness. Most people treat imagination like a toy. They use it to worry, to doubt, to relive pain. They imagine worst-case scenarios and then call them realism. But there's nothing real about giving power to fear. There's nothing practical about expecting the worst. All that happens is the mind, acting on its perfect obedience, brings those scenes to life. And then the person says, see, I knew it would happen. But they do not realize they are not predicting, they are creating. The mind is loyal. It does not judge what you feed it, it simply acts. You have been given a gift so powerful that it mirrors the divine itself. To imagine is to say, let there be. And what follows is the unfolding of that command. The unseen becomes seen. The intangible becomes tangible. And the life you once only dreamed of begins to take form around you. But this process does not happen by accident. It is initiated by intention and sustained by persistence. That is the key so many miss. A moment of imagination is not enough. A passing wish has no root. But when you persist in the same inner experience, when you walk in it, speak from it, live as though it were already true, then you are no longer merely imagining, you are becoming. And when you become something on the inside, the world has no option but to reflect that change. This is not mysticism. This is law. Just as a mirror cannot reflect what is not in front of it, your life cannot reflect what you have not held within. And just as the sun does not choose where to shine, it simply shines, so too does imagination not choose what to manifest, it simply expresses what is most dominantly felt and believed within the mind that uses it. And that is why your attention is sacred. Where your attention goes, imagination flows. And what you imagine persistently becomes the blueprint of your future. Do not wait for external circumstances to change before you allow yourself to imagine something better. That is like waiting for warmth before starting a fire. You must light the fire first. You must dare to imagine your life as you wish it to be, even while it appears otherwise. Because the moment you begin to imagine consistently, with feeling, you are already stepping into a new dimension of self. The world may lag behind for a moment, but it will catch up. It must. That is its nature. The outer follows the inner, not the other way around. You are not at the mercy of fate or chance. You are not a pawn in the hands of others. You are the creator of your experience, not through struggle or force, but through the quiet power of imagination. That which you persistently imagine, you become. And that which you become internally, you must meet externally. This is the eternal truth behind all transformation. Persistence is not about force, nor is it about straining your will to make something happen. It is about a steady, unwavering inner commitment to live in the state of the wish fulfilled. It is the calm and faithful decision to return again and again to the vision you've chosen, regardless of how loudly the outer world screams in contradiction. Most people begin this journey with enthusiasm. They imagine the life they desire, feel the emotions of it, taste its sweetness in their mind. But when days pass and nothing outside changes, doubt creeps in. They begin to wonder if this is just fantasy, if perhaps reality is too fixed, too stubborn to bend. And so they withdraw from the inner world and fall back into reacting to what they see. What they do not understand is that the world outside always lags behind the shift within. Persistence is the bridge that closes that gap. It is the invisible hand that guides unseen energies into alignment. You are not meant to imagine once and then give up. You are not meant to visualize for a few moments and then return to fear or despair. This work requires a faithfulness of heart. It asks you to choose, over and over again, to live internally from the end result, even when the outer world tells a different story. You must become so loyal to your vision that the facts no longer sway your spirit. The appearances no longer have power to define you. You become defined, instead, by what you see and feel within. Imagine planting a seed. You place it in the soil, cover it gently, and water it. Do you return the next morning and dig it up to see if it has sprouted? No. You trust the process. You water it again. You allow the unseen work of growth to unfold beneath the surface. And you do this daily, even though there is no visible proof in the beginning. This is the essence of persistence in imagination. You return to your inner image, the scene that reflects your fulfilled desire, and you water it with belief, with emotion, with silence. You do not demand its sprout overnight. You simply remain faithful. And that faith, that return again and again to the inner picture, is what guarantees the outer result. Persistence is not hard when you understand that it is not effort but trust. It is the relaxation into knowing that your imagination is a creative force, not a passive experience. When you hold a vision with deep feeling and do so consistently, you are writing the script for your life, and life will perform it line by line, moment by moment. But if you keep rewriting the script, if you keep changing the scene or doubting the story midway through, then nothing can settle into form. It's not that imagination doesn't work, it's that it hasn't been given a chance to finish its work. There is a hidden beauty in persistence. It reveals to you what you truly believe. If you find it difficult to hold on to the vision, if you are constantly tempted to return to fear or worry, then that is not failure, it is illumination. You are being shown the parts of your consciousness that are still tied to the old identity. And this is where the real transformation happens. Persistence is not only about achieving the outer desire, it is about refining the inner self until it is fully aligned with that desire. You become the version of yourself that naturally experiences what you imagine. And here lies the mystery. The moment you persist in an inner assumption long enough, it begins to feel normal. What once felt like a stretch becomes your default state. You no longer need to force the feeling because the feeling has taken root. It has become familiar. This is when manifestation becomes inevitable. You are no longer pretending or wishing, you are being. And being is the most powerful creative act in existence. This is not the words you speak or the rituals you perform, but the state you inhabit. And the only way to inhabit a new state fully is to persist in it until the mind accepts it as truth. There will be moments when the old world tries to pull you back, when memories arise, when the past demands your attention. But you must treat those moments like passing clouds. Do not fight them. Do not fear them. Simply return to your chosen vision. Every return strengthens it. Every return is a declaration that this is who you are now. And soon, that declaration will no longer be silent. It will echo into the world as changed circumstances open doors and unexpected blessings. People who call it luck or coincidence, but you will know it was born from within. Persistence does not require long hours. It requires sincerity. A few moments of true immersion in the feeling of the wish fulfilled is more powerful than hours of distracted imagining. The key is consistency. Imagine before you sleep. Imagine when you wake. Imagine when your mind wanders. Let your imagination become your dwelling place. Let your inner conversations reflect the life you want to live. And when doubts come, and they will, meet them not with fear but with confidence. Confidence that what you feel within is more real than what you see without. There is no power greater than the human imagination fueled by persistence. It moves mountains, heals wounds, creates paths where none seem to exist. But you must not be swayed by time. Do not measure progress by what appears outside. Measure it by your growing conviction inside. Do you believe more today than you did yesterday? Do you feel closer to your vision when you close your eyes? That is the true compass. That is the evidence of transformation. You have within you the power to shape the very structure of your life, but that power only responds to consistency. You must decide who you are and live from that decision daily. The world may resist at first. It may echo the old beliefs for a while. But if you hold fast, if you return and return again to the reality you've chosen within, the world will eventually surrender. It has no choice. It always bends to the will of the persistent dreamer. You do not become what you wish for, you become what you assume. This is a truth that escapes the minds of many who believe that desiring something is enough to bring it into being. But desire alone, without a corresponding assumption of its reality, is like a ship without a rudder, drifting, aimless, easily swayed by the tides of external conditions. Your life is shaped not by what you hope for, but by what you inwardly consent to be true. The images you hold as real, the identities you accept, the self-definitions you repeat in your silence, these are the architects of your experience. The outer world is not a judge. It is a servant. It delivers to you precisely what you persistently believe yourself to be. Assumption is the silent decree we make in the depths of our being. It is the posture of the soul. It is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, steady, and often invisible to others. Yet its effects are monumental. When you assume something to be true, even in the absence of proof, you begin to think from it. You begin to feel, speak, and act in alignment with it. And as you continue in this state, the world begins to rearrange itself in response, not because the world is listening to your words, but because it must reflect the image held in your consciousness. You may say you want success, love, freedom, or peace, but if deep within you feel unworthy, unseen, or powerless, then it is not your spoken desire that creates. It is your assumed identity. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you are. The truth of who you believe yourself to be is written into every experience you encounter. The relationships you draw, the opportunities that arise, the challenges you face, they are all messages echoing from the beliefs you entertain. Change the belief, and the message changes. To live by assumption is to walk by faith, not by sight. It is to trust the unseen more than the seen. It is to claim what is not yet visible as though it were already fact. And this is not delusion, it is creation. All that you now see was once unseen. Every invention, every masterpiece, Every achievement in the world began as a silent assumption in someone's imagination. They believed it real before it became real. They felt it true before anyone else could see it. And because they did, reality responded. The greatest freedom you will ever know comes from understanding that you can choose your assumptions. You are not bound by what others say you are. You are not a prisoner of your past. You are not confined to the limits others have accepted. At any moment, you can step into a new idea of yourself. You can say, "This is who I am now," and begin to live from that state. And if you persist, the world will eventually agree. This is the hidden key to all transformation. Not the struggle to force change, but the quiet decision to assume a new identity, to assume health instead of illness, to assume abundance instead of lack, to assume love instead of rejection. And the assumption is made not with the lips, but with the heart. It is felt, not merely spoken. It must become more than a thought. It must become a felt reality, an inner knowing. Many try to change their lives by changing external things. They move cities, switch careers, seek new relationships, hoping that these changes will fix the dissatisfaction within. But the inner self remains unchanged. The assumption remains the same. And so the pattern repeats again and again. Different faces, different places, same experience. Because the external only reflects the internal. You do not escape your assumptions by running from them. You transcend them by replacing them. To assume is to claim authority over your life. It is to say, "I am not waiting for permission. I already am." It is to reject the need for proof and to stand firm in a new identity, knowing that proof must follow. You are not asking the world to believe in you. You are commanding it to reflect what you already believe about yourself. And this power is not reserved for the few. It is the inheritance of every soul willing to awaken to it. There is a moment in the life of every conscious creator when they must choose between comfort and transformation. It is comfortable to remain in the known, to keep affirming the identity that has been shaped by the past. But transformation requires boldness. It demands that you let go of the old and step into the unknown, assuming a new role before it feels natural. And that is where most fall. They wait to feel ready. They wait for external signs. But readiness is an illusion. The sign you seek is the assumption you dare to make. Assumption creates the mold into which life must pour itself. It forms the structure of experience before the experience is seen. And once the structure is set, once the state is occupied, then manifestation becomes a matter of time. But you must stay in the state. You must resist the temptation to slip back into the old identity when nothing seems to change. You must be loyal to the vision, not to the facts. What you assume to be true of yourself becomes your reality, not because of magic or luck, but because life is obedient to your inner state. And if you wish to change your life, change what you assume, not in moments of desperation or fleeting hope, but in the stillness of your heart. Every day, every hour, until the new state becomes your dwelling place, until it becomes natural. And then, when it is no longer a performance, but a being, you will look around and see that the world has caught up with what you have long known to be true. The outer world is nothing more than a mirror, silently reflecting your dominant inner state. What you call reality is not something happening to you. It is something happening through you. Everything you see, hear, and experience is echoing the assumptions you hold within yourself. This is not philosophy. It is not mere inspiration. It is a law, as certain as gravity and as impartial as light. You do not change the mirror by wiping the reflection. You change it by changing the source that produces the image. In the same way, you do not change your circumstances by struggling against them. You change them by shifting the consciousness from which they arise. Every person, every event, every success and failure you encounter in life is drawn to you by your inner self-concept. Life, in its quiet and faithful way, listens to the tone of your inner voice and responds accordingly. If you believe yourself to be unseen, life will give you the experience of being overlooked. If you see yourself as unworthy, you will find relationships and opportunities that reinforce that feeling. If you imagine that abundance is far from you, you will continue to experience lack. Not because life is cruel, but because it is obedient. It delivers only what you persistently believe to be true. This is the reason many live in cycles. They try to change jobs, switch relationships, move to new places, or set new goals, hoping that change will finally bring fulfillment. But nothing truly changes. The same patterns follow them from city to city, from person to person. Why? Because the outer world is not the cause, it is the effect. And until the cause within is altered, the effect remains the same. You cannot outrun your own consciousness. You take it with you wherever you go. There is immense power in this truth, once you truly grasp it, because it means you are not at the mercy of chance or the whims of others. You are not bound to relive your past or repeat your patterns. You have the power to choose a new state of being, a new idea of yourself, and when you do, the world must conform. But the shift must be real. It must be internal. It must be more than words. It must be a change in feeling, in belief, in identity. It is not enough to speak affirmations with your lips while your heart still beats with fear. It is not enough to visualize a new life while secretly believing it's out of reach. The outer world responds not to what you say, but to what you are. And what you are is determined by what you dwell upon, what you accept as possible, what you feel to be true in the silence of your soul. Your dominant state becomes your reality. When you begin to observe your life with this awareness, you will notice how precisely your inner world maps onto your outer experience. If you carry a sense of lack, you will notice how opportunities seem just out of reach. If you radiate gratitude and abundance within, you will find yourself walking into blessings without effort. It is not coincidence, it is correspondence. The world is not separate from you. It is the outpicturing of your inner state. This is why it is said that feeling is the secret, because feeling is the language by which your consciousness communicates with life. A single moment of genuine feeling carries more creative power than hours of mechanical repetition. When you imagine yourself as healthy, joyful, fulfilled, and feel it deeply, you are impressing that image onto the subconscious mind. And the subconscious does not question, it accepts. It begins to guide your actions, your thoughts, your reactions, until the outer world begins to reflect that inner certainty. But this transformation does not happen instantly. The old world may linger. The remnants of past beliefs may echo in your environment for a time. And here is where many falter. They judge their progress by what they see rather than by what they know. They return to fear, to doubt, to the familiar feeling of not having. And in doing so, they undo the work of their inner creation. Persistence is required, not because the universe is slow to respond, but because the mind must be fully saturated with the new assumption before it can take form. Your world will always confirm who you believe yourself to be. It cannot help it, it has no choice. It is a mirror, not a judge. And if you do not like what you see, the answer is not to fight the mirror, but to shift the image you project. Speak differently within. Imagine boldly, feel deeply, and most importantly, remain loyal to the new vision, even when the old world tries to pull you back. It is not resistance you must apply, it is residence. You must take up residence in the new state until it becomes your natural dwelling. Imagine waking each morning and instead of reviewing your past failures or fears, You choose to enter a new scene in your mind. You walk through a home that is yours. You speak from the position of one who is loved, who is secure, who is thriving. You do this not once, but daily. And as you persist, your inner world shifts. You find yourself reacting differently, you speak differently, you walk with quiet confidence, and soon life begins to mirror that change. You meet new people, new doors open, opportunities arrive in the most unexpected ways. It is not magic, it is law. The law that states what is within must appear without. And so the work is always inward. When the outer world appears hostile or disappointing, turn inward and ask, what am I assuming? What story am I telling about myself? What image am I holding? And then change it. Not by force, but by faith, by vision, by feeling. Hold to the new image, even if nothing supports it yet, because the moment you do, the mirror must change. It is not a matter of if, it is only a matter of when. And that when is determined by how faithfully you live in the new state, how deeply you feel it, how completely you allow it to define you. Your life is not reacting to others, it is reacting to you. And the more you realize this, the more freedom you gain. You no longer blame, you no longer wait. You create quietly, boldly, from within. Because the world around you is not fixed, it is always listening, always watching for your next instruction. And that instruction is delivered through the assumptions you live by, the feelings you embody, and the visions you persistently entertain. The outer is simply the echo. The cause is always within. The law of creation is impersonal. It does not reward the good or punish the bad. It does not ask whether you are worthy or unworthy. It does not wait for you to become perfect. It simply responds to the state you occupy and the belief you persistently hold. This is what makes it both frightening and freeing. Frightening because it means you are always creating even in your unconsciousness. Freeing because it means you can begin creating deliberately at any moment, regardless of your past. The law is not emotional, it is precise. It functions with perfect consistency, just as gravity does. You do not have to be a saint to make use of it. You do not need approval. You simply need faith and the willingness to persist in the assumption of your desired state. This law does not ask if you are ready. It responds only to what you claim as real. You can say 1,000 affirmations, but if you do not believe them, if you do not feel them to be true, they hold no power. The law does not respond to words alone. It responds to feeling, to belief, to inner certainty. It is not about the number of times you repeat something, but the depth with which you feel it. One moment of deep, genuine belief can do more than weeks of empty repetition. The key is to feel from the state you desire, to live in that state inwardly, even before the world reflects it outwardly. People often ask, why hasn't it happened yet? But this question reveals a misunderstanding. The law is not delayed. It is immediate in its response to your dominant state. What takes time is not the law's function, but the stabilization of your own belief. If your faith wavers, if you imagine your desire one moment and then question it the next, you are sending mixed signals to the mirror of life. It reflects what you believe most persistently, not what you believe momentarily. That is why persistence is everything. The one who continues in faith, regardless of appearances, is the one who will see their vision made real. The law works whether you use it consciously or not. If you fill your mind with images of lack, fear, and failure, you will see those things reflected in your life, not because you are cursed or doomed, but because that is what you have inwardly accepted as true. Likewise, if you fill your mind with images of abundance, peace, and success, and you persist in those images until they feel natural, then the law must respond accordingly. It has no choice. It does not consider fairness. It mirrors belief. You do not need to struggle or beg. The law does not respond to desperation. It responds to inner knowing. When you imagine something and feel it real, you are giving the law its command. When you persist in that feeling, despite what you see, you are confirming that command. And when your inner state becomes unshakable, the outer must yield. It is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. The world bends to those who dare to remain loyal to the unseen. So many people believe they must earn their desires. They think they must prove themselves worthy through suffering or endless effort. But the law is not keeping score. It is not measuring your goodness. It is measuring your belief. Are you dwelling in the consciousness of what you want? Are you assuming it, not as a distant hope, but as a present fact? That is what activates the law. Not struggle, not merit. Belief. And this is what makes the law available to everyone. You do not need anything outside yourself. No special education, no wealth, no connections. The only qualification is your willingness to believe. Your willingness to feel the unseen as real. That is the true starting point of all transformation. Everything else is secondary. If you can hold the end in mind and feel it is true, without needing to know how or when it will come, you are already walking in alignment with the law. The difficulty for most people is not that they lack the ability to imagine. It is that they lack the discipline to remain faithful to the vision. They let the outer world dictate their belief. They pray for change while continuing to feel the same fear. They wish for love while assuming rejection. But the law does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you feel you already are. You must embody the change you seek. You must become it internally before it ever appears externally. You may think this is unfair, but it is actually the greatest justice, because it means no one can take your power away. No one can block your path unless you allow them to. No one can limit your destiny unless you agree to those limits. The law is impersonal, and because of that, it is perfectly just. It offers itself equally to all. The question is, will you use it deliberately? Will you claim your power to create through faith and persistence? When you begin to trust the law, truly trust it, something shifts within you. You stop reacting to appearances. You stop begging for change. You stop wondering if it will happen. Instead, you live from the end. You rest in the feeling of your fulfilled desire. You walk in the world with quiet assurance, knowing that the law is already working on your behalf. You don't need to chase anything. You become the embodiment of it, and life brings it to you. Faith is the engine, not blind faith, but intelligent, conscious faith. The kind of faith that knows the truth of imagination. The kind of faith that refuses to let go, not out of stubbornness, but out of certainty. When you hold to your vision with this kind of inner conviction, the law begins to move. Circumstances shift. People appear. Resources come, not through strain, but through alignment. The law does not require you to push. It requires you to assume. This is the simplicity that most overlook. They complicate the process with rituals, doubts, and unnecessary actions. But at the heart of it all is one question. What do you believe to be true about yourself and your life? That belief is the seed. That belief is the command. And if you persist in it, the law will obey. It cannot do otherwise. You are never meant to chase. You are never meant to beg for a place at a table. You were born to own. The moment you understand this, your world begins to shift. Not because something outside of you changes, but because something within you awakens. You are not waiting to be chosen. You are the one they have been searching for, whether they know it yet or not. But this knowing must rise from within, not from the lips of others. not from external approval, but from the divine certainty that lives in your imagination. Act as if you are the one they seek, not because you're pretending, but because you're remembering. You've forgotten your power, you've forgotten the truth of your being. You've traded the kingdom within for crumbs outside. But now, you return to yourself. You begin to move through life not as one who wishes to be worthy, but as one who is worthy. And this difference, subtle as it seems, bends the laws of reality around you. The world reflects not what you desire, but what you assume to be true. If you assume lack, you will see it confirmed everywhere. If you assume you are overlooked, life will pass you by, as if in agreement with your belief. But when you stand in the quiet, radiant knowing that you are the one, they will feel it. They will see it. They will respond, even if they cannot explain why. Your assumption becomes their revelation. You don't need to strive. You don't need to announce yourself with noise or desperation. When you walk into a room believing you are the one they seek, your presence carries that truth before your words ever arrive. People respond not to your words, but to your state of being. It is the silent conviction that magnetizes the very reality you once tried to chase down. There is no waiting when you live in the assumption of being sought after. Waiting is only the child of doubt, and doubt is the evidence of forgetting. So do not wait. Embody. Step into your day as if the world is already sent for you. Speak as if the answers are looking for your voice. Love as if your heart is the prize. Create as if what you imagine is the blueprint of tomorrow's reality. The one who waits is denied. The one who acts as if it is already done receives. You must become blind to appearances and loyal to your vision. Appearances may whisper, no one notices you. No one wants what you offer, but that's only the echo of old beliefs asking to be released. Do not negotiate with doubt. Replace it. Speak over it. Move differently. Dress differently. Carry yourself as if the meeting is already scheduled, the contract already signed, the love already on its way. Then you will see how the world cannot help but play its part. When you assume the position of the sought-after, life organizes itself accordingly. The doors you used to knock on now swing open before you arrive. The calls you hoped would come now wait for you to pick up. The recognition you thought you had to earn now follows you like a shadow, inevitable and silent. You are not chasing validation. You are revealing identity. And that identity is not something to be found outside of you. It is within, sculpted in imagination, formed in faith, confirmed by experience. The only real work is to assume the state, to persist in the inner knowing until the outer mirrors it back. Others may call it delusion, but what they cannot see is that reality is always late to the party. It only arrives after you've sent the invitation through belief. So live from the end, not toward it, from it. Wake up each day and dress yourself in the feeling that the world is already yours, not with arrogance, but with certainty, not with pride, but with peace. The only thing separating you from being the one they seek is the idea that you are not. And ideas can be changed, assumptions can be replaced. You are never stuck, never behind, never too late. You only need to begin now, this moment, with a new inner dialogue. Not will they find me, but they are already looking for me, because I am what they need, whether they know it yet or not. So carry yourself as the answer. Speak as the solution. Walk as the evidence. The world responds to the one who already believes. And once you do, you'll find that you were never waiting to be chosen. You are simply waiting to remember that you already are. There is a silent magic in assuming something is already true before the world has the courage to agree. The most transformative shift in your life begins not with effort, not with action, not with external validation, but with a quiet, radical assumption that you already are the one. You are not waiting for someone to discover you. You are not hoping that they will one day realize your value. You are assuming right now that you are already the one they seek. This is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is an act of spiritual remembrance, a return to the self that never needed permission to shine. When you assume the identity before the world confirms it, you reverse the usual order of things. Most people wait for circumstances to change before they allow themselves to feel worthy. They wait to be told they're important before they walk with confidence. They wait for applause before they believe in their gift. But that is the slow way, the false way. That is placing the power of your life in the hands of others who may never truly see you. The only path that bends reality in your favor is the path of assumption. You do not need evidence to believe. Belief itself creates the evidence. Think of the actors who live their roles so deeply that they begin to carry those roles even when the camera isn't rolling. They speak differently, they move differently. The body listens to the mind, and the mind listens to the image it holds. So it is with you. You must become the actor and the director of your own life. Hold in your imagination the image of yourself as the one who is sought after, not because you are pretending, but because this is how creation works. The outer is born from the inner. You must feel it real before it becomes visible. If you truly believe that you are the one they seek, how would your posture change? Would you still be hesitating, shrinking, doubting your presence in the room? Or would you move with quiet authority, with the grace of someone who belongs exactly where they are? The key is not to force these behaviors from the outside, but to allow them to arise naturally from a new inner conviction. This inner shift does not require permission from anyone. You do not need a promotion, a relationship, or applause to start living from this state. The assumption itself is the seed, and like any seed, it does not bloom instantly, but its nature is undeniable. Once planted, it must grow. Your subconscious mind does not argue with you. It accepts what you repeatedly feel is true. So if you walk each day feeling overlooked, unworthy, or invisible, your subconscious makes that your reality. It allows the world to treat you the same way you treat yourself. But if you begin to shift your inner talk, your inner mood, your inner posture to one of chosenness, to one of being sought after, the subconscious mind follows. And in time, your world does too. This is not a technique to manipulate others. This is not a game. This is the law of being. The person who assumes they are worthy of being sought after carries a presence that cannot be ignored. It isn't loud. It isn't showy. It is rooted, calm, magnetic. There is a difference between someone chasing attention and someone assuming they are already the answer. One exhausts themselves for recognition. The other simply stands still and lets the world adjust to their vibration. There are people right now waiting for someone like you, but they won't recognize you if you don't recognize yourself first. It is not their job to awaken your worth. It is yours. And it begins with assumption. This assumption is a living thing. You must feed it. You must walk with it, speak with it, nurture it like a flame in the wind. Every moment you return to the inner knowing, every time you resist the urge to slip back into doubt, you make the assumption stronger. You make the future inevitable. Ask yourself, if I were truly the one they seek, what would I no longer tolerate? You'd walk away from places that diminish you. You'd speak with clarity and conviction. You'd stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You'd move with purpose, and your life would reflect that purpose back to you. But the shift must come first from the inside. That's the paradox. People think they'll believe in themselves once the evidence appears. But the evidence only comes after the belief. This is the secret that so few are willing to trust. You cannot afford to wait for the world to agree with your value. That is spiritual poverty. That is wandering without a home. Your home is your assumption. You must live in it now. When you wake up tomorrow, rise as the one they seek. When you speak, speak as the one they've been waiting to hear from. When you walk into a room, do it with the presence of someone who knows the world is already responding. Not because it is. It always has been. But it responds to the state you live in, not the words you say. And the state you choose is entirely your own. There is no greater gift you can give to yourself than to assume your place in the story. You are not an extra. You are not the background character hoping for a line. You are the center of your reality. And when you assume that fully, unapologetically, with love and certainty, the world reorganizes itself around you. People show up. Opportunities open. Paths appear where there were once only walls. All of this not because you chased it, but because you became it. So start today, not with desperation, but with quiet authority. Not with arrogance, but with a sense of peace. You are the one they seek. Let every step, every glance, every breath testify to that truth. And soon the world will mirror it back with a clarity so perfect, you'll wonder how you ever doubted it at all. The power that shapes your life is not in the hands of others. It doesn't reside in fate, luck, or some external force waiting to grant you permission. The true power lies in the state you occupy. Everything flows from there. Every experience, every conversation, every reaction you receive from the world is a mirror reflecting the state you have chosen, consciously or unconsciously. To change your life, you must change the state from which you think, feel, speak, and act. This isn't just about positive thinking or surface-level affirmations. This is about shifting the very ground upon which your reality is built. When you enter the state of being the one who is already chosen, already sought after, already respected and valued, you step into a current of life that begins to carry you differently. You have to understand that every state of consciousness has a vibration, and that vibration is a silent command to the universe. The state of lack vibrates at a frequency that draws more lack. The state of waiting sends out the energy of delay. But the state of being, the state of already having what you desire, sends out a different song altogether. It does not plead. It does not beg. It does not ask for permission. It simply is. And because it is, it begins to mold reality to match its inner essence. This is why it's not enough to want something. You can want something for years and never receive it. Wanting keeps it distant. But when you occupy the state of already being the one who has it, reality bends toward your assumption, not your hope. So many people believe they must first accomplish or acquire something in the world before they can feel like they've arrived. They look to titles, to relationships, to possessions as proof that they are finally worthy. But that is an exhausting way to live. That is chasing shadows. The world responds not to your outer effort, but to your inner truth. The one who knows they are sought after walks differently, speaks differently, holds themselves with a calm assurance. They are not performing for attention. They are not adjusting themselves to be accepted. They are settled in their being, and that being is magnetic. The power of the state is so subtle that most people overlook it. They chase techniques. They study strategies. They look for shortcuts, but they miss the foundation. If you are in the wrong state, nothing else will work. You can apply all the methods in the world, but if your inner posture is rooted in doubt, in unworthiness, in lack, the results will be inconsistent, if they appear at all. But change the state, and everything shifts effortlessly. You don't need to convince others when you are convinced within. That inner conviction is the key that opens every door. You cannot fake this. You cannot mimic the movements without embodying the truth. The world sees through empty declarations, but when the state becomes real to you, when you feel it in your bones and breathe it through your actions, people respond without understanding why. They feel something in your presence. They trust your words without needing evidence. They are drawn not to what you do, but to who you have become. This is not about manipulation. This is about resonance. You resonate with a new frequency, and the world finds you on that level. Occupying a stage is not about pretending, it's about remembering. You are not trying to become something you are not. You are returning to the truth of who you have always been, beneath the fear, beneath the self-doubt, beneath the programming that told you to wait your turn. When you shift into a higher state, you don't become arrogant, you become clear. You don't become distant, you become aligned. You no longer seek from a place of emptiness. You give from a place of fullness. And in that giving, you attract more than you ever imagined. This shift in state is not something that happens once and stays forever. It is a daily commitment, a returning, a conscious choice. Every morning you rise, you must decide, will I dwell in the old state that brought me here, or will I step into the new one that takes me where I belong? Your life is shaped by this decision more than by any circumstance. No matter what happens on the outside, you always have the power to return to your chosen state. And every time you return, you strengthen it. You root deeper into your new identity. You become immovable in your assumption. Imagine the difference between someone who walks into a room thinking, I hope they like me, versus someone who enters knowing they are blessed to experience my presence. That's not ego. That's embodiment. That's the quiet knowing that your essence is valuable, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. When you operate from this state, you stop shrinking to fit in. You stop apologizing for your light. You begin to shine not because you're trying to be seen, but because that's just what light does. It shines effortlessly. The world cannot give you what you do not first give to yourself. The respect you seek, the recognition, the opportunities, they all begin with how you see yourself. And how you see yourself is determined by the state you occupy. Choose wisely, protect that state, nurture it like a fire. When doubt comes, remind yourself, you are not your thoughts, you are not your fears. You are the one who chooses what to dwell in. And the more you dwell in the state of being the one they seek, the more the world begins to align with that vision. This is not about force. This is not about control. This is about surrendering to the truth that you are already it, that you already carry within you the essence of what they need, of what they're looking for. You don't need to change who you are. You need to awaken to who you've always been. And from that awakening, you act not as a seeker, but as the one who has already been found within. Because once you find yourself truly, deeply, with conviction, the world cannot help but reflect that discovery back to you in every form. The world is not responding to what you say, what you want, or even what you do. It is responding to who you are being. It is answering the silent message you carry within yourself, the one you don't speak aloud but communicate constantly through your energy, your posture, your gaze, and your choices. People and circumstances are not random actors in your story. They are mirrors reflecting your innermost assumptions back to you. This is why, when you shift your internal state, your outer world cannot remain the same. It adjusts, reorganizes, and aligns with the new image you hold of yourself. And when that image is one of being the sought after, the chosen, the worthy, life begins to treat you as such. Others don't consciously know why they are drawn to you. They may not have words for it, but they feel it. They feel when you're settled in your spirit, when you're not needing them to complete you, when you are already full and whole and carrying the vibration of certainty. You don't have to tell them, I am the one you seek. They already know. They may not know how or why, but something in your presence speaks louder than words. It's not about trying to impress or persuade anyone. It's about embodying a truth so deeply that it radiates from you without effort. When you are convinced within, they feel it without. It's easy to misunderstand this and think you need to change your behavior first. But behavior is only the surface layer. It's a branch of a tree, not the root. The root is the assumption you live from. Change the root, and the branches will bear different fruit. You don't need to rehearse how to walk, speak, or gesture. You need only to assume the state, and those things will happen automatically. The version of you who knows they are the one being sought doesn't try to act confident. They simply are. And their actions flow naturally from that place. When someone believes they are invisible or unwanted, they give off signals of hesitation. They second-guess their words. They shrink in their presence. They overthink every move, hoping not to make a mistake. This creates a feedback loop. Others pick up on that unease and respond accordingly. But when you shift into the assumption that you are valuable, needed, and chosen, your energy changes. You no longer speak with fear of rejection. You no longer need constant validation. You become the anchor in the room. And in a world full of people seeking something to hold on to, that kind of presence becomes irresistible. People often wonder why they're being ignored, passed over, or dismissed, but the answer is rarely outside of them. It lies within. The world is not unjustly punishing them. It is simply echoing what they believe about themselves. If you believe you are the one others are looking for, life bends in that direction. If you believe you are easily replaceable or unworthy of attention, the world obliges, not because it's cruel, but because it's obedient. Reality is not random, it's reflective. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop chasing and start radiating. You stop proving and start becoming. You don't walk into rooms trying to earn space. You walk in knowing your presence already adds value. You begin to attract without effort, because attraction is not a matter of forcing others to notice you. It's about becoming someone who cannot be ignored. And that begins not with charm, looks, or even talent, but with the conviction that you are already it. Sefte ollenis av matnara, ye already chosen, already sought, already the one. This doesn't mean you'll never face resistance or doubt again. It means you'll stop letting those things define you. You'll begin to see resistance for what it is, a test of your assumption, a question life asks you, do you really believe you're the one? And your answer cannot be words, it must be being. When the old patterns show up, when the doubts whisper again, when the people who once ignored you reappear, your response is not to argue, but to remain in state. The state of being the one, the state of already having it. And when you remain, the world follows. You will notice people begin to treat you differently. They'll listen more intently. They'll look at you with deeper interest. Opportunities will come that you once thought were beyond your reach. Not because the world suddenly became fairer, but because you became clearer. You began to live in alignment with who you truly are, rather than who fear told you to be. And that alignment is magnetic. It pulls into your life the very things you used to chase. It turns strangers into allies, chance meetings into breakthroughs, and ordinary days into holy ground. Don't underestimate the power of your assumptions. They shape your tone of voice, your breathing, your eye contact, your sense of timing. They influence the kind of relationships you attract and the way people engage with you. They determine whether someone sees you as a leader or a follower, as a placeholder or a priority. All of this is happening without a word being spoken. Because assumptions are not just thoughts, they are states of being, and being is the most powerful language in the universe. You don't need to announce yourself when you know who you are. You don't need to explain your worth when you walk in the vibration of already being chosen. The person who lives in that state does not wait for the world to catch up. They live as if it's already done. And because they live that way, the world has no choice but to comply. This is the unseen law that governs creation. People may call it confidence, they may call it charisma. But what it really is assumption made flesh. And so the shift is not in them, it's in you. It's always been in you. The world has no independent power apart from the image you hold. You are not reacting to it, it is reacting to you. Begin to see yourself through new eyes, not the eyes of your past, not the eyes of those who fail to recognize you, but through the eyes of truth. You are already the one they seek, not because you have to prove it, but because it is already done within. When you carry that certainty in your energy, others will feel it, respond to it, and reflect it without even knowing why. Because you've stopped asking to be seen and have started being. And being is the source of all visibility. Creation does not begin in the visible world. It begins in the unseen, in the silent realm of thought and imagination, where all things are first conceived before they are ever born into form. Everything you experience with your senses, your relationships, your opportunities, your environment, is simply the echo of something you've already entertained within. It is a shadow or a reflection, a delayed mirror of your inner world. This is the great truth hidden in plain sight. The invisible creates the visible. What you hold consistently in your imagination, what you feel with intensity and persistence, what you embody internally without doubt, must eventually appear in the world around you. It cannot be otherwise. Your imagination is not a playground for fantasy. It is the workshop of your destiny. It is the first womb where your future is shaped. Every time you rehearse failure in your mind, you are writing the script for your own defeat. And every time you rehearse success, not as something distant, but as something already yours, you are sending out the command that creation must obey. This is not wishful thinking. This is spiritual law. The world is not happening to you. It is happening through you in response to what you continually assume to be true, whether consciously or not. Most people try to change their lives by manipulating outer circumstances. They rearrange their schedules, change their jobs, seek new relationships, and work harder. But they remain internally the same. They carry the same doubts, the same insecurities, the same stories about who they are and what is possible for them. And so the external changes never last. The faces may shift, the places may change, but the experiences repeat. Because the inner blueprint has not been altered. The only way to truly change your world is to change the world within you first. You must create inwardly what you wish to see outwardly, and you must live in that creation long before the senses confirm it. This is where most give up. They imagine briefly, they affirm for a day or two, but when nothing seems to change immediately, they return to old patterns. They look outside for proof instead of standing firm in the unseen. But those who understand the law remain faithful to their inner picture. They know that the visible world is a delayed reflection, and they don't panic when things appear unchanged. They persist. They continue to dwell in the state of the wish fulfilled, knowing that what is planted in imagination will break through into form when the conditions are right. And the condition is always your faith. Your inner conviction is the soil that determines whether your vision will take root. If you believe deeply, if you feel it is real even in the absence of evidence, you accelerate its arrival. But if you waver, if you doubt, If you let appearances dictate your belief, you delay it or cancel it altogether. That's how powerful you are. You are the gatekeeper of your world. You are the one deciding what will be birthed and what will remain barren, based on how fully you embrace the invisible as reality. When you understand this, you stop begging life to change. You stop waiting for someone to recognize your worth. You stop looking for signs. You become the sign. You become the evidence. You wake up and live as if what you desire is already done. You speak from it. You act from it. You think from it. And slowly, quietly, the world around you bends to match the image you carry. Not because you force it, but because you embodied it. You became the vibration of what you wanted, and the outer world, being only a mirror, responded with reflection. This is why it is so crucial to guard the images you entertain in your mind. They are not harmless daydreams. They are seeds, and each one, if watered by emotion and repetition, will grow. Every fear, every limitation, every inner complaint is an instruction to the universe to bring more of the same. But every vision of peace, of success, of being wanted and sought after is also an instruction. It is a declaration that you are ready to live from a higher truth. And that truth cannot remain buried forever. It must express itself. There is a version of you that already lives the life you long for. This version is not far away. It is not unreachable. It is within, waiting to be acknowledged, activated, and embodied. And once you begin to identify with this inner self, to see yourself through its eyes, to feel the emotions it feels, the line between imagination and reality begins to dissolve. You begin to live as that version now, and the world, having no power of its own, must follow your lead. This is not a performance. This is not pretending. It is a sacred decision to reject the tyranny of appearances and to live by the authority of inner truth. When you imagine something consistently and with feeling, you are not lying to yourself. You are telling the deeper truth, the truth that precedes facts. Facts can change. Truth is eternal. And the truth is you are already what you seek to become. The work is simply to accept it, to live from it, and to let the outer world catch up. You don't need to explain this process to anyone. You don't need to convince others of what you know within. Let your life be the testimony. Let your results speak for themselves. People will wonder how you did it. They'll ask what changed. And you'll know it wasn't anything they could see. It was what you chose to believe when no one else saw it yet. It was the images you honored when the world gave you no reason to. It was the silent inner shift that turned the tide. So never underestimate the power of the unseen. Never think your imagination is weak or childish. It is the most sacred tool you possess. It is the brush with which you paint the canvas of your life. Every time you return to that inner world and dwell in the feeling of your desire fulfilled, you are planting the invisible architecture of your future. And if you persist, if you truly dwell in that place, it will become visible. It must. Because the invisible always creates the visible. It has never been otherwise. It never will be. There is a vast difference between moving toward your desire and moving from it. The world is filled with people striving, hoping, waiting for something to come, endlessly looking ahead with uncertainty in their steps. They place their dreams on a timeline, always just out of reach, always someday. And in doing so, they reinforce the distance between themselves and the life they long for. But to live from the end is to collapse that distance. It is to embody the result before it arrives. It is to become the version of yourself who already has what you once believed was still far away. This single shift in awareness has the power to change everything. When you live from the end, you no longer speak with the voice of yearning. You no longer act from the belief. that you must prove something to earn your place. You speak with the calm confidence of someone who already belongs. You move with the quiet certainty of someone who has arrived. You stop questioning whether your dreams are possible and start living as if their fulfillment is your natural state. And the moment you make this inner leap, the world takes notice, because you no longer match the frequency of delay. You match the frequency of completion. And completion calls to itself everything it requires to remain fulfilled. This is the great paradox. The people who receive most abundantly are the ones who already feel no lack. The ones who are chaste are the ones who walk as if they are never waiting. The ones who are chosen are the ones who carry themselves as if they have already been selected. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. You're not faking anything. You are simply refusing to live according to what the outer world says is possible and choosing instead to trust the reality you have claimed within. You must understand that everything begins with your state of consciousness. When you live from lack, even the most beautiful gifts will slip through your fingers. You'll sabotage blessings because you'll still feel unworthy. But when you live from abundance, from wholeness, from the truth that you are already the one, they will find you. Opportunities will gravitate toward you. People will respond to you differently. And life will begin to mirror the inner state you've committed to. Living from the end means walking as the person who no longer wonders if, but knows it is. Imagine someone who has already received the answer to their deepest prayer. How do they speak? How do they treat themselves? How do they navigate their relationships and their day? There is no panic, no need to chase, no frantic search for validation. There is presence, there is peace. There is a knowing that what they've asked for is already theirs. Now imagine that person is you. Not in the distant future, but now. Imagine waking up and stepping into the identity of someone whose time has already come. Every breath becomes different. Every decision carries weight and clarity. You stop playing small. You stop waiting for the world to give you a sign, and instead you become the sign.